Okay, so we are now recording. So as I mentioned, today's session is on the sewage notification data system. I'm going to give some introductory remarks, and then Nicole will walk through the basics of using the system, and then John will walk through some specific scenarios. Before we do dive into the data system, I wanted to make a couple of other announcements related to the sewage notification program. First of all, if you are a CSO permittee, thank you for submitting your CSO notification plan on time. The DEP regional offices are in the process of reviewing all of those plans, and they will be issuing response letters to all of the permittees. You may have already received that response letter. If you did not receive a letter yet, you should be receiving one soon, either this week or next week. And if you have questions, feel free to follow up with your regional office. For the non-CSO permittees, just a reminder that your SSO notification plans are due on July 6th. They should be sent to the MassDEP, appropriate MassDEP regional office by email, as well as our general sewage notification email box, which is massdep.sewagenotification@mass.gov. If you need any assistance with preparing your plan, you can contact your regional office or contact us by email using that same general email box that I just stated for sending in your plan. Also wanted to draw your attention to one other recent update that we sent an email about last week. This is related to the timing of updating your website after issuing public advisory notifications. We have heard from permittees that they need more flexibility in the timing for when these can be, when this can be, the information can be posted to their website, given the availability of IT staff to update their websites. We had originally, or initially a couple months ago, said that we would consider folks compliant with the requirement to update their website if it was done for overnight discharges, if it was done during the next daytime shift. We've heard from a lot of permittees that that's just really not enough time and that more flexibility is needed. So we are now have revised that to say that we can allow some additional flexibility so that you can update your website on the next business day. We are also asking permittees to put some specific wording on their website that talks about how frequent the website will be updated after notifications are sent out, and direct them to the MassDEP website, which will have all the notifications, and on something like weekends or holidays may be updated more frequently. And also let them know that the quickest way to get information is to subscribe to receive the notifications directly. So there was an email I sent out about that last Friday. If you didn't get it, maybe just note that in the chat and with your email address, and I will make sure to forward it over to you. So I think those are my other announcements. Moving back to our data system. So this is version 1.0 of the system. It will allow permittees and DEP to meet our regulatory and statutory obligations to report to DEP and to get information up on DEP's website. We do know that it could be a fancier system. It could be a more complex system, but this is, what we have to start with the short period of time we were given to promulgate regulations and get this program up and running. So we do already have internally a list of enhancements that we're hoping to make in the second version of the system, which may occur in just the next few months. And then we have some additional enhancements that we know may take longer to happen within a year or more. So if you have ideas for enhancements to the system, feel free to share them with us, and we will add them to our list for future enhancements. And with that, I think I will turn it over to Nicole to start the demo walking through the system.
Awesome, thanks. I'm going to share my screen. First, I want to go over the registration process, which a lot of you guys are at various points in the various points in the process. But it's got a couple different steps, so it can be confusing. The first step is for someone from security measure, so that we make sure that the only people who end up with access to the data system are the people who should have access to the data system. So when you fill this out, you'll fill in your name and contact info in case we have any questions. And then you'll also fill out the name of the user being requested. Okay. This could be your email address. This can be someone else's email address. And you can resubmit this form as many times as many times as you need, so that you can get as many users as you need to have access to the system. I'd recommend thinking about, like, if your primary person is out, who might report in their place. And you can do that either by having multiple users with multiple accounts, or if you set up an account with like a generic email address for your facility, you could also, like, another option is to have multiple people with access to that account. Those are just options that you have on that end. So after this form is filled out, each user needs to register. So that is done by following the registration instructions in this file, which you should have received, I believe, last week. And it was also in another email that was sent out yesterday. So you'd go to this website, click login and register, and then select create an account. From here, you can fill out whatever info you want to register with, your username, your password, email, and hit sign up. You're not done yet because there's an activation step. The email address that you use to sign up should get a verification code. So you'll go and copy that code. And then you'll also need to enter in that username that you just signed up with and hit activate. Now at this point, the next step is on MassDEP's end. If you try to log in using this information, you'll get an error. And that's because we still need to do the final step of authorizing you as a user in the system. So to do that, we're going to use the results from this user request form to say, okay, so-and-so has been requested as a user. We know that they should be a user, and we can see their request. We can see their registration in our system, and then we'll give that user the ability to log in and enter data into the system. We'll also send you a confirmation email saying you now have access to the system. At this point, no one has been authorized as a user in the system, so I'm going to start that next week. So watch out next week if you've registered for a confirmation email. And if you're confused about any of the steps in the system or in that registration process, feel free to reach out, and I can help you, make sure that you're at where you need to be. That was all I had to go over for registration. So I'll move on to the data system unless there's anything else that we should talk about at this point. Okay. Just need to log in real quick so I can show you what's in here.
Yes.
So once you log in, you'll have this button is where you'll click to see the list of all of the things that all the reports that you've submitted. So you go to My Incidents, and you'll see a table with everything that you've submitted so far. If you have just saved the incident so that you can like go in and edit it and it's not complete yet, you can go in and edit that report by clicking this button. If you have submitted the reports, these can be viewed but not edited. So that's what this Manage button does. Submitted reports show up in the public portal. So once you submit a report, it's locked in, you can't edit it, and it's viewable in the public portal if someone goes and searches for example, events in their town. And in order to satisfy the regulatory requirements for reporting into the MassDEP system, you do need to submit the report. There are two types of there are two types of reports that are submitted in the system. One is a public notification report, and that happens soon after the event occurs. So a discharge or overflow will happen. You will discover that the event has happened with metering or whatever other method is outlined in your plan. And then you'll send out a public advisory notification to all of the subscribers in your system. After you send out the public advisory notification, you have 18 hours to submit the public notification report into the data system. The other type of report is a verified data report, and that is once you've been able to double check all of the information related to the event, you know the volume of the discharge, you have rainfall data if it's applicable, and you can do that anytime up to like mid-month the following month. To create a new incident, you'll click this button, New Incident, and then select the report class, so Public Notification Report or Verified Data Report. We'll walk through an example of a public notification report right now. And then you just walk through each of these fields in order. As you input information, some of the subsequent fields might get grayed out if it's not applicable or might be pre-populated. Just keep going one field by one field, and all of that information will like trickle through as appropriate. And by the time you get to the end of the form, anything that you can't edit, you don't have to go in and manually edit. There are a few fields that are optional, and they're marked optional. Also in this these set of instructions at the very end, there are definitions for all of the fields in case any additional information is helpful. We'll fill out the incident date. This is the date and time that the event began. The reporter name is pre-populated based on your account. And one thing we brought up on Monday is that previously we've had an issue with the testing environment that the reporter name was showing up on the public portal. We're fixing that by the time the system is ready to go for July 6th. So by July 6th, the reporter email address shouldn't show up. The report type is based on the status of the event at the time you submit the report. So if the event is still ongoing by the time you submit your report into this electronic system, you'll click ongoing. If it has ceased, you click ceased. If you've issued multiple public advisory notifications to your subscriber system by the time you're submitting the report, you can submit one report for those multiple public advisory notifications just to save some time. So for this example, I'll say that the event is still ongoing. There are multiple event types. So you've got some CSO events, partially treated events, including blended wastewater, and SSO events. And the next is the permittee class. If your facility has any CSOs, you are a CSO permittee class, even if you're reporting a partially treated event or an SSO event. Just as an example, I'll select CSO. The permittee name, you can start typing permittee name and then it'll auto populate to whatever options are available. And this is an example of a field that has pre-populated and is grayed out. You can't edit it. That's because we have this info in the database. The outfall ID list is also pre-populated based on the information we have. And I'll go back and show you how that changes based on the event type. So if the event type is a CSO for the same facility, the outfall list is updated to show the list of CSO outfalls. And if the event type is an SSO event for the same facility, then outfall ID, you can't edit outfall ID, and instead you can enter in the latitude and longitude. That's optional because you might not have that information right away. Municipality is also required. I'm going to leave that blank just to show you what happens if you forget something. And the water body description, I also need to enter here. This info at the bottom, the volume, the rainfall, and the duration are for verified data reports. So the reports that you can submit a month, the following month. After any of these steps, you can hit save for later and come back, like save your progress and come back later. The next section for submitting a report is regulatory questions. So have you followed all of the requirements in the regulations about issuing a public advisory notification? Did you do it on time? Did you issue it to everybody that you needed to? And does it have all the translations that it needs to have? It's got yes or no drop downs.
Woodbury, I live at 51 Shady Lane.
Some of these fields have a not applicable option. So you can just go through each of these for your case of your event. If you answered no to any of the questions, you do need to provide an explanation. And there's this last field is optional, just if you have any other notes to add. Supporting documents are required for public advisory notifications. I'm sorry, for public notification reports. So you need to attach a copy of the public advisory notification that you sent out to your subscriber system. If you have that in a PDF, that's great. It does accept other file formats. If you are submitting one report for multiple public advisory notifications, you should include all of those in this attachment, either by combining them and uploading them in one attachment, or you can submit multiple attachments. And the final step is to review the information that you've already input and submit. If you've made any mistakes, those will be highlighted here. So I forgot to put in the municipality and it won't let me submit, but I can go back and enter the municipality and go back to the review and submit section. There's no errors highlighted in red, and so I can submit the report. Then there's a final pop-up that says, once you submit, you can't change any information. And then if I hit submit, that data is then able to be viewed on the public portal. Now it takes us back to the My Incidents page. I forget if I mentioned this before, but you can only view the reports that have been submitted on your account. So if a coworker has a different account and they submit a report on that account, you wouldn't be able to view it on your account. But you can go into the public portal and search for whatever you want and find it there. One other thing about this page is that any of these columns can be sorted if you click on them. So if you click on it once, it sorts low to high, and then a second time it sorts high to low. So this is the report that we just submitted. If you click the Manage button, you click the Manage button, it lets you view all the information that you've already submitted for that report. So this is all of the information that you filled out. The second tab lets you see any supporting documents that you added. If the event was still ongoing at the time of your report, you can add an update. So you would go to this tab and click Add Update Report. So your first report would be like the parent report. This update report would be beneath it like a child report. And you would fill out all that same information. Unfortunately, you still have to enter this info manually at this point. The incident date and time are the time the event started. So it's the same as your first report. For reporting type here, you have the option to select ongoing or ceased. Let's say here that the event has ceased, and we'll input the same information that we did before. Each of these pages are the same as the one that we already went through. You've got yes or no's for questions related to whether you've adhered to the regulatory requirements. And you also have to attach whatever public advisory notification goes along with this update, or any, or if there's multiple public advisory notifications that go along with this update. And then you can submit your update report. And it takes you back to the My Incidents page. And I can show you what that looks like. This is the first report that we submitted together today. If you go to view and add update reports, this is the update report that we just added. Real quick, I want to go through adding a verified data report. So the kind of report that you can add the following month. There are a few things that are different here. So you'd enter in the information associated with the event, and this is a report for the entire event. So even if the first event you had an initial report and then a couple of update reports, you'd want to submit a verified data report for the whole time the discharge or overflow was occurring. Now we do have the option to enter in the volume and the rainfall. So the volume should be in gallons, rainfall data is in inches. If your event had nothing to do with a wet weather event, you can just enter in a 0, even if it was raining. If the event happened for an hour and a half, you would enter that by typing in 1 hour, 30 minutes, and hit next. You don't have to enter the public advisory questions for a verified data report. But at the bottom of this page, you still have the option of adding additional information. The attachment is not required for a verified data report, but you can add an attachment if there's any information you want to be available. Oh, and here I missed the water body description, but nothing here is new. So I'll just save this for later rather than go in and fix that right now. And quickly, I can show you what the public portal looks like. It's just thinking for a second. So this is where anybody can open up the web page once it's available to everyone, and you can search for report type, permittee class, outfall, permittee name, and you'll get details associated with any of the reports that have been submitted into the system. Those can be exported into Excel. And there's also a detailed view if you want to see just one report. That info is here. That's everything that I wanted to go over for the walkthrough of the system.
We have a bunch of questions in the chat, so we could do those before we move on to John.
Oh no, have you not been able to see my screen?
Here we are.
Yeah, we can.
Oh, okay, good. It said I got confused.
Yeah, I was just saying we should go through the questions in the chat before John starts, but yeah, I think we've been able to
Great.
see everything. Okay, one question that John already answered in the chat, but probably just good to make sure we state it again. If one person from an agency creates a report, can another person from that agency edit or modify it? The answer is no. It's only the reports stay with the account that was used. And permittees may want to think about how to best manage that, whether you want a generic account for your permittee so that you can access all the reports rather than individual for each person. So, but that's a decision that each permittee can make. Do you have a flow diagram of the reporting forms with timeframes? No, we don't at this time have that available. Do co-permittees use the main permittee name? No, everybody reports under their own entity. So if you don't have your own treatment plant, you're still in there individually as the name of the city or the name of the city or the town, or it may be under the DPW or sewer authority, but the name of the city or town would be in there. So everybody is independent. They're not associated with the main permittee. For non-CSO permittees, if there is a qualifying SSO that does not have a defined outfall, would its outfall have to be defined as lat long? So for CS or SSO events that are not associated with a defined outfall, the lat long is optional. We'd prefer you put it in if you have it, just so we are able to have the location, but we understand that in short reporting timeframes, permittees might not have that information available. So if you don't have it available, you don't have to fill it out. If you do, put it in, and we'll be happy to have it. Okay, you say that if more than one outfall overflows, you can submit a single incident report to DEP. How do you enter multiple outfalls on the template form? So you can't enter multiple outfalls on one report. You can do multiple reports for the same outfall at the same time. And John will walk through this a little bit more, but because we're allowing 18 hours from the initial public advisory notification to enter into the data system, by the time you're entering data at 18 hours, the event may be over. And you may have done the public advisory notifications for the initial notification and then the 8-hour, and you can put the information for those in at the same time on one report. So you would just fill out the information once, and when you get to the end, you upload the 2 public advisory notifications instead of 1. And like I said, John will go through that a little bit in a little bit more detail. Similar, how do you input multiple CSO events? Do we need to fill out this form for each CSO? Unfortunately, yes, you do have to do it each time for each CSO outfall. We don't have a way to combine outfalls into one report. Are the data system instructions available online? I believe they aren't yet, but they will be on our website, and Nicole did email them out yesterday, I think. If you didn't get them, we can email them to you. When answering yes or no, can more detail be provided and not just a section of the law? I assume you mean on the questions, those 6 questions. They do have the section, the regulatory section, but it does kind of describe that requirement too. We can't, unfortunately, change any of the text in the system at this point, but maybe we can, if there's a way to provide a guide somewhere else, maybe in the instructions, we can elaborate on what those are, just if folks aren't sure from looking at the prompts in the system itself. Besides the initial report, must the 8-hour update be submitted to the DEP portal? Yes, but you don't, like I was just saying earlier, you don't necessarily have to do them. Each has separate entries into the data system. If you wait the 18 hours, you can, you may be able to do multiple at the same time. And again, John's going to go through that. Incidents must be uploaded to the DEP portal within 18 hours, or must they be officially submitted within 18 hours? Where is this 18-hour time frame stated? Is it in the regs? So it is not in the regs. The regs were a bit ambiguous on the timing. So it does, in the regs, it says permittee shall report discharges and overflows to the department within the required timeframes. And which kind of goes back to the section of the regs that talks about issuing the public advisory notification. So a strict interpretation of the regs would be that the data needs to be entered in the data system basically at the same time that you're issuing the public advisory notifications. But we understand that that's not realistic in many cases, especially if it's an overnight discharge, because it does require a human to enter data into this system. And I know some permittees intend to use an automated system to issue the public advisory notifications and not necessarily, having an actual person do that. And so that, it might be difficult to enter the data at the same time. So the 18-hour time frame is to allow permittees some additional flexibility when they enter the data, but still allow DEP to meet the statutory obligation to have the information up on our website within 24 hours of when we receive the notification from the permittees. It is stated in our FAQ document on our website, the 18 hours, but it is not actually in the regulations. And the system is new, and so there is some lag time between when you enter the data and it gets into our website. We may be able to allow more than 18 hours at some point in the future, not all the way to 24, but something in between 18 and 24, once we are comfortable that the system is getting updated frequently enough to meet the 24-hour statutory requirement. Let's see. So what happens if one person enters an incident, then leaves for vacation for 2 weeks, has the next shift update or close out the previously submitted report? Well, I guess if you know a person is leaving, you might want to plan for that to figure that out in advance. But it is possible for another person to enter the update report. It's just they're going to have to do it as a new report. We definitely understand this is not ideal. Unfortunately, it is how the system is set up at this point. So you wouldn't, unless you have access to that person's account, you wouldn't be able to go in and directly update. You could enter it in as a new report, and it would sort of be tied together through the same incident data. Okay, when you attach the public advisory notification, do you mean to attach a PDF of the local notification webpage or the email to subscribers? So it would be the email or text that's sent to subscribers, either as a PDF or some other file format. Okay, email the instructions will do. Can the 8-hour update be submitted earlier if the CSO has stopped? So the regulations require that the 8-hour update public advisory notification is issued, regardless of whether it stops before 8 hours. So I would advise that that document is going to need to go in the data system too. So if you enter it before 8 hours, you're gonna have to go in and do another report. So I would not advise doing it before you sent out the 8-hour update. Unless, I mean, if folks want to do the initial entry into the data system before 8 hours because their shift is ending or something like that, that's fine, but just recognize that you'll have to do another entry into the data system at a later point in time. So those are all the questions so far. I'll have John do his part now, and then we can answer more questions after that.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to go over a couple of my notes from the last training before I jump into some of my examples. The goal is to be able to provide everyone some scenario templates by the end of next week. So what we're walking through now, retractions, longer than 8-hour events, how these are going to be entered. We'll kind of give you the walkthroughs on how those are going to be entered, just so everyone kind of has an understanding of how they're going to be entered into the system. I also want to cover some points that the questions have come in about and that we've kind of spoke about briefly, that may be just strategies on how your facility is going to enter data into the system and how you go about users. So just as kind of it's been stated, but I want to re-emphasize, is that every notification that's issued requires a public notification report entry into the system and a verified data report. Any report, if you're missing a required field, is not going to allow you to submit. You can save reports for later, but these are unable to be deleted once they're saved into the system by the user. Once an item is submitted to the portal, DEP is not able to delete that, nor is the permittee or the user able to delete that. So once a report is submitted, that is into the portal and open to the public. So you really want to make sure when you're hitting that submit, regardless of it's your public notification report entry or your verified data, you really want to make sure you're submitting the right information there, because they're not able to be deleted. We spoke about this kind of a few times, but each submittal is unique to that user. All users under that permittee cannot see other reports other than through the public portal. So again, as we've spoke about, if you have multiple users and someone's entering into the system, that's going to be unique to them. They're the only ones that are going to be able to see that report unless you're searching through the public portal. One thing to note too, as we talk about not being able to delete reports, as an approved user in the system, you may be approved for one permittee, but when you're entering something into the system, when you pull down that permittee list, it gives you access to the full list of permittees. So again, the person entering into the system needs to be extra careful. You're entering it for your facility. So for example, Nicole can't see the incidences that I've been running in the test portal, and I can't see her, she can't see mine. So we may be approved under the same user protocol, but we're not able to see each other's reports. So I think that's it for the majority of my notes. I'm going to walk through some of the reports now. So if everyone can see this, all right. So here are the reports that I've tested, all right, preliminarily. So for the most part, when you're coming in here, this is what you're going to see. You're typically only going to see your permittee name. But the majority of incidents are going to be entered as initial ceased, because you have this 18-hour window to enter into the our portal, for the most part, these should be initial ceased. However, if you're entering it earlier into the system, it may be an initial ongoing, and then you have your verified data reports. So some of the main events that you may run into. So I think we want to talk about some of these longer than 8-hour events. We've seen some questions come in already on that. So I've set up a couple different scenarios for these. So because you have this 18-hour window, if at the time of the event you initiate your reporting, it's ongoing. So if you see here, this one at Greater Lawrence, it was an initial ongoing of an untreated CSO. So when you click on here, just loading for a minute. So you see the event that they have put in here. So this is an ongoing event at the time. At the time that it was submitted, you don't know that it's going to be over 8 hours, so that's not applicable. Now you attach your supporting document. So this is your notification that was issued as ongoing. It's issued to the public. You attach your PDF here. And in this scenario, because they issued it as ongoing, at that 8-hour mark, the event is still ongoing. So you issue this new child report as ongoing, and then you issue your 2-hour ceased event at the time that it ceased. So this is going to be 4 scenarios where you may be entering your data at the end of a shift, or one of these scenarios, the event is still ongoing. This is how you stack your reports from your parent to child reports. The other option in this scenario is you have, so we use Situate, they have an SSO failure of pump station or associated force main. They have it as initial ceased. So in this scenario, you see the event is all entered. They did, acknowledge that their 8-hour notification went out. You see here that the initial notification was issued at 3 p.m. The ongoing notification issued at 11. Cessation notification issued at 2 a.m. The event was over at 1 a.m. So that's in their notes. But when you see here for their supporting documents, because all the events, all the notifications have been issued because they used the 18-hour window to enter into our system, you see the initial notification, you see the ongoing and the ceased. And then as you click here, there's no updated reports with this one because the incident is ceased by the time entering into the system. So those are 2 different strategies one could look at when you're figuring out how you want to enter these into how your facility is going about to enter these into the system, into the data portal. The other event that requires some discussion is retraction of an event. And this is probably a little bit more geared towards the CSOs. But so the regulations require that if a false positive occurrence has been discovered within 48 hours, a public notification must be issued. So you issue your initial notification. And so this is their notification that was issued. It was CSO untreated. It was initial ceased. So you go through, you issue this notification, you issue your supporting documents that the notification was issued. However, within that 48 hours, you are notified by your sensor company that the event actually was a false positive due to sensor failure, tidal influence. So this one, as you see here, it hasn't been submitted yet. It's still in the edit phase, so it's been saved, but hasn't been submitted. And you go through here and you see that it was actually on this next page, a retraction due to a sensor failure. So you update with your attachments here, a retraction PDF. So that notification went out to the public that this event has been retracted because of the sensor failure. It is now posted in here and under your notifications because it was found within 48 hours. So that notification was issued. So you want to make sure that's documented here in your supporting documents. You hit next and then all this information, submit. And like I said, you want to make sure your information is correct before you hit submit and submit. So that is one way to retract an event. The other is this event. Now your sensor company comes back to you a week later, 2 weeks later, and says, oh, that CSO notification that was issued on last Tuesday, that was actually tidal influence when we reviewed the data. So in that scenario, you're going to enter it as a verified data report. Let's see where I have that one. So you see here, verified data report. And what you would do here is just make sure you enter volume 0, duration 0, minutes 0. You can put your rainfall, and then just make sure you have your retraction statement in there. So that's kind of the main one there. We've kind of showed the data portal. So just kind of to show an example, show verified data search. So again, one of the points of emphasis on why we want to make sure when you're submitting these reports that the information is accurate. Once it's in the data portal, this is going to be searchable by the public. So if you strike an extra 0 and you have 100 inches of rainfall, that's going to carry into the data system, and we don't have an ability to change that with this current setup. So again, you just want to make sure you're really paying attention when you're hitting submit, that your data is accurate at that point in time. So those are kind of the main scenarios on submitting. Like I said, we're gonna come up with some templates for everyone to use. So we're making sure you see how to enter it properly into the system, and make sure that everyone is entering them kind of on the same level. And also Nicole and I are available. So if you have specific questions, or you want to walk through some scenarios, or you want to see how your facility looks in the system, feel free to reach out to either of us by phone, email, and I'd be more than happy to set up a one-on-one meeting, and we can kind of walk through the system for your facility. Because again, as we've stated, once you hit submit, that information is out there. So we want to just make sure no erroneous data is getting entered into the system. So I think we can take some more questions at this point, if anyone has any.
There were some additional questions in the chat. Does the 18 hours apply if the SSO happens on a Saturday? Does the 18 hours start on the following Monday? So the timing doesn't matter whether it's on the weekend or overnight. 18 hours starts when you issue your public advisory notification. So you have 2 hours from when you discover the event to issue the public advisory notification, and 18 hours from when you issue that notification to enter the system into the data, regardless of if it's weekend or not. Any resource supporting documents that can be shared among permittees. So the supporting document is just a copy of the public advisory notification that you have already issued. So I'm not sure if that's what you're looking for, an example of a public advisory notification. There are some permittees who have actually already started doing their notifications now. So if that would be helpful, we could share an example. Similar, can we see a sample public notification in PDF format that would get attached as supporting documents? We could, maybe we could include an example in the instructions or something, or send it around. That would be helpful. We can think about how to get that to folks. For volume, can you use actual volume or 3-year average volume? So when you're issuing your public advisory notification, the volume in there should be your 3-year average. And when you're doing the reporting to the data system, within 18 hours of that public advisory notification, you aren't able to actually enter volume. The only volume that's going to be provided there is what's already in the public advisory notification, which is included in the PDF you're going to upload. When you do the verified data report the next month, that is the actual volume and not the estimated 3-year average.
And that's why we want the attachment as a PDF, so that initial submittal of volume, it's just that estimate, is we don't want that going to the public portal, because that data could change. So we want to make sure when you're entering it as your verified data, that's the most accurate information, and that's going to be the data that is searchable and accessible to the public.
All right, that's all the questions in the chat. If others have questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask, or raise your hand, or put it in the chat.
Hi, Susie.
Hi.
This is Isaiah from the city of Haverhill. I had a quick question. So we're obviously trying to automate a lot of our system.
Yep.
So with automation probably comes more retractions. If we send out a public notification that an event has occurred, and then we get to work and we find out that no event had occurred, we sent out the retraction, do I still have to fill out an incident report?
So if you determined within the 18 hours that it already didn't occur, would you have?
Correct.
Right. Well, that's a good question that I think we had not thought about.
I mean, it happens quite the other day, you know,
Right.
we had, I mean, we're doing all automation, a lot of flow meters, a lot of finicky equipment out there. So we had one the other day, we sent out a crew to take a look, there was no overflow. So I would have sent out a retraction. I mean, we're not fully automated yet. We just haven't turned the switch to say, let's go.
So in that scenario, the public notification has gone out, right?
Right.
Right.
Then in that scenario, that yes, the retraction needs to be issued. So anytime that notification goes out
Mhm.
and then the retraction goes out, it still needs to be entered into the system.
So I would have to enter it into the incident.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it could be done as, so it all happens in that 18-hour window. That could be entered as one event. So it would be initial ceased, your supporting documents would be the notification retraction, and then you put retraction in it. So it would only be one entry, but it would still need to cover the two scenarios that the notification was issued and the retraction was issued.
Retraction. Yeah.
I don't love that answer, but okay.
I don't-
Any other questions? All right. There's a question just came in the chat. Can you repeat the 8-hour update? So once you issue a public advisory notification within 2 hours of discovering the discharge, you also have to issue an 8-hour update advisory notification. This is in the regulations. That 8-hour update is either going to say that the discharge has ceased or that the discharge is ongoing. If the discharge has ceased at that point, in terms of the public advisory notification, you're all done with notifications. If it's ongoing, you have to continue to do updates either when it ceases or within 2 hours when it ceases, or if it's still ongoing another 8 hours later, you have to do an update. In terms of how that matches up with reporting into the data system, because you have 18 hours from when you do your initial public advisory notification, you may be able to wrap those into one report into the data system. So if at 8 hours your discharge has ceased, you issue your public advisory notification update saying the discharge ceased after 6 hours. Now you go into the data system, you can do just one report that says the discharge has ceased. And then you would, at the end where you attach the supporting documentation, you would attach 2 public advisory notifications, the initial one and the 8-hour update. And then you would be done with your entry into the data system. You could do it as just one report into the system. If you were to choose to do the entry into the data system before the 8 hours, you can, but just then you would need, then sometime after the 8-hour update, you would need to do your second entry to put in the 8-hour update and close out the event.
Hi, this is Kimberly at Air Wastewater. Can you please clarify the 2 hours notification versus the website update So my understanding is that there is a more of a lag or delay allowed for the website update, but the emails all need to, and the public notification has to be done within 2 hours. Can you kind of expand on that a little more and clarify that for me?
Sure. So for an SSO event, you have 4 hours to discover the event. So from the time that you get some kind of information that indicates you may be having an SSO, whether it's somebody calls you with a complaint or some kind of alarm or some kind, pressure drop in the system, you have 4 hours to verify whether that's actually an SSO. Once you do make that determination that it is in fact an SSO, you have 2 hours from that point to issue the public advisory notification. And that 2 hours is in the law and it's in the regulations. So that's pretty hard requirement. Along with updating or sending out the public advisory notification, you have to also put the public advisory notification on your website. If you read the regulations and you interpret them strictly, that may be interpreted to say that the website has to be updated at the same time that you do the public advisory notifications. But we understand that that is a challenge for permittees, that the staff that would update the website are not necessarily the same staff that issue the notifications, and that people need more flexibility on that. So we are saying that we will consider it compliant if you update the website the next business day from when the discharge happens. So if it happens on Saturday morning, it can be done sometime on Monday. If it happens on Monday, it can be done on Tuesday. Happens on Sunday, done on Monday. Same goes with holidays, the next business day after the holiday.
Okay, thank you so much. And I would reiterate, having some examples on this of these advisories would be super helpful. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, any other questions? All right, well, I think we can finish up for today. Thanks everyone for participating, and feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Nicole or John is happy to give you a one-on-one if you need it. And if you know anyone who wasn't able to attend today that needs the demo, let them know this will be posted on our website, and they can also feel free to reach out to Nicole or John. All right, thanks everyone.